Our reflection this evening is going to be about leadership succession. Very timely ang topic na ito, especially as we Filipinos are preparing for the May 2022 elections. Merong dalawang models of succession sa ating mga pagbasa ngayon. The first, from the first reading, the succession from Saul to David. And from our gospel reading, the succession from Jesus to the 12 apostles. Let's take a look at the first reading. In our first reading today, we hear about Saul hunting down David in order to kill him. Can you imagine that? All because Saul does not want David to be his successor. He would rather have his own son, Jonathan, in the throne after him, in order to establish his family as a political dynasty. Uso na noon pa, mga political dynasties. At the end of this long reading from the first book of Samuel, chapter 24, we are told that Saul finally gives in. And the circumstances are medyo nakakatawa, very amusing. The author tells us na minsan, isang araw, nasa may parang sila or ilang na lugar, out in the wilderness, at nag-toilet itong si Saul. Kailangan niyang mag-toilet activity. I imagine him confidently saying, dun sa kanyang mga sundalo, o siya ha, dyan lang muna kayo. You can stay there by the mouth of the cave. Gwardiyahan niyo ko habang nagto-toilet ako sa loob ng kuweba. He was being guarded outside. Hindi niya alam, yung tinutugis niya na si David, kasama yung mga tauhan, they were right there inside the cave. And David could have killed him. Pero nagpigil si David. Why? He refused to harm the anointed one of the Lord. You know, it's a combination of comedy and drama. Ang sabi ng ating author, David even cut a piece of the cloak of King Saul. Siguro, bago siya nag-toilet, inalis muna niya yung kanyang balabal and put it very close to the place where David was hiding. And it is after Saul is done with his toilet activity that David suddenly shows up and calls out to Saul and says, "My Lord the King." Gulat siguro ni Saul. He probably thought he was seeing a ghost. And I imagine David bowing to the ground and weeping as he said to the king, "Why are you doing this to me? What did I do to you to make you hate me so much? When I have done nothing but serve you faithfully like a son to his own father." In the earlier part of the story, we were told that David was used to dealing with Saul kasi madalas daw bad mood itong si Saul. Whenever the king behaved like he was under the spell of a malevolent spirit na possess baga. And David would play some relaxing music on the harp. Kasi musician si David, singer pa siya. And this time, David is doing the same thing. But, wala na siyang, hindi sa pagkanta, hindi sa pagtugtog. He is simply talking some sense to King Saul. You see, Saul had just relieved himself inside the cave, but he also needed to relieve himself of the spiritual waste that was poisoning his heart. Yung kanyang inggit at insecurity. And once again, David succeeds in calming him down, helping him come to his senses. And this time, natauhan si Saul. Ang sabi niya, ikaw ba yan, anak? He called David his son. And he finally accepted that this man was really the man whom the Lord had chosen as his successor. Sa ating gospel reading, Jesus is also going to the wilderness. Not to relieve himself. Although, I wouldn't be surprised kasi madalas si Jesus nasa mga ilang na lugar. I am sure he sometimes also went to the wilderness for that purpose. Nakakalimutan nating tao din si Jesus, kailangan din niyang mag-toilet. He is going into a solitude of communion in a gospel today to be one with the Father, precisely to ask his Father to guide him in identifying his successors. Because alam niya, his days were numbered. He knew that what happened to John the Baptist was bound to happen to him also. And so he made sure na may successor siya. That his mission would be sustained even after he was gone. As Christians, we have no model of leadership but Jesus. You know, Jesus is not the type who would build a personality cult around himself or monopolize leadership. He does not hold on to power. He shares his leadership and in effect multiplies himself in his disciples who become his apostles. Look, it has been almost 2,000 years now since Jesus returned to the Father, and yet his mission goes on. He did not choose superheroes for his successors. He chose ordinary human beings like you and me. Most of the ones he chose as apostles were fishermen. Meron pang ang aktivista. And there was one who became a traitor. But Jesus never gave up on any one of them. Neither on the one who denied him, nor on the one who betrayed him. Why? Well, because he had bought them from Satan at the price of his own blood. Ano kaya nakita ng Panginoon dito sa 12 ito na kanyang napili bilang successors? I think he saw what Saul could not see in the heart of David for a long time. Not until he relieved himself of the spiritual waste that was poisoning his soul. I think Jesus saw in each one of the 12 a sincere desire to respond with love to his love. It was enough to give him confidence that in spite of their human weaknesses and failures, they would be able to keep the mission going until kingdom come.